Big Brother contestant Morgan Pope has been called out by another houseguest after she friend-zoned Vince Panaro. Even the other people in the house know that the two have crossed too many boundaries. This is shocking news for fans to hear. No one expected Morgan to ever friend-zone Vince. However, she could just be doing so because he has a girlfriend back home. Keep reading to find out more about what happened. Morgan Pope has friend-zoned Vince Panaro. When she was talking to Ashley, she claimed Vince was just her bestie. If people ask, I'm gonna be like, we're best friends, everyone knows that this is not the truth. The two are cuddling in bed together, saying I love you, kissing on the cheek, and being vulnerable with one another. Fans have not been happy about this the entire season. This is because Vince has had a girlfriend for 7 years back home. His girlfriend Kelsey has unfollowed him on all social media and made it clear that she was not okay with what he was doing. Vince got a taste of this when he did not get a video message from her. Ashley called Morgan out when she said she and Vince were just friends. Ashley knows, as well as fans, that there is something more there. She was not going to let Morgan had never planned to be a headline. She'd come onto the show with a ready smile, a measured poker face and a social ease that made people want to fold into her orbit. Vince, who had the kind of easy laugh that lit the kitchen and a reputation as the season's sweetheart, was the kind of person who gravitates toward warmth. It was chemistry the producers live for, the sort of connection that makes late-night conversations longer, alliance talk softer, and bedsheets a diplomatic no-man's land. Except there was a complication that snipped at the edges of the narrative like a stray thread. Vince had a girlfriend back home, Kelsey, a relationship he'd mentioned offhandedly in a press packet before entering the house, and that had been the safest narrative line in the beginning. Fans had nodded and filed it away. But over weeks, the boundary that relationship provided blurred. Kelsey, who'd been quietly present across the ocean in viewers' minds, became inexplicably loud when the cameras caught Vince spooning Morgan, kissing the corner of her mouth, telling her late at night, I love you, in the kind of whisper meant for the lightest ears. Morgan's answer to scrutiny was a phrase, we're best friends. She said it to Ashley in the living room one afternoon, the kind of blanket sentence designed to smother gossip. If people ask, I'm gonna be like, we're best friends, she told her, with an airy shrug that read like practiced deflection. When Ashley pressed, Morgan laughed and moved the conversation, a deft pivot trained in courtesy and self-preservation. But in the house there are no private pivots. The living room has ears and the kitchen table has eyes. The phrase best friends landed like a pebble in a pond that had been churning, and the ringed ripples hit everyone in different ways. To some, it was a protective bit of language, a barrier Morgan could point to when cameras and fans peered too closely. To others, it was a deliberate dodge, a tiny white flag waved to keep judgment at bay. Ashley did not wave flags. She had never been one to sugarcoat or sidestep, calling out was her brand. She had watched Vince and Morgan cuddle in bed nights earlier, had listened as they exchanged the kind of intimate confessions that become the undercurrent of any late-night connection. And when Morgan tossed the best friends line into the air, Ashley could not let it drift. I know that's how you feel, Ashley began, her voice low enough not to pull the entire house into the spiral of the conversation but loud enough that Morgan would hear, but visually. I'll just call it. I wouldn't be surprised if in 3 months you guys are dating. Nobody would, I don't think. It seems, she left the sentence hanging, but her look finished the thought. Yikes. That's how the other houseguests described the moment later in interviews, concise, brutal and undeniably true. Morgan's face tightened in a way that was human and raw, caught on camera with an intimacy that made millions switch tabs and lean closer. In the kitchen, a cup cracked against the counter, the sound seemed to mark the end of any pretense. Morgan had the tools to deflect, humor, charm, small talk, but Ashley's comment landed like a stone in a place where the current had already been strong. Her immediate reaction was the kind that folded into the rest of her personality, a replay of guilt, a search for justification, and a whisper of defensiveness. She denied it at first, in a way that sounded less like protection and more like hope. We're best friends, she repeated, quieter. Truth, in the Big Brother house, does not come with footnotes. Actions are the footnotes. And actions had already written a new chapter, sleeping together, kissing cheek to cheek, the head-on shoulder closeness that made everyone in the house shuffle their feet when they walked by. Outside, the audience had an opinion and a timeline. Fans, the jury most convinced of their own moral clarity, lit up social media with the kind of righteous anger that only an invested fandom can sustain for weeks. Vince's girlfriend Kelsey, who had dated him for 7 years according to the show's intro pack everyone had read, unfollowed him on all platforms. The gesture was small and symbolic and loud in all the ways a public breakup can be when it hasn't been spoken. Fans speculated, drafted theories, and drew their own line between empathy and betrayal. None of it landed kindly on Morgan. The stakes are always performative in the Big Brother world, twisted differently for Morgan than for Vince. She was aware of the optics. She felt the pull of the viewer's eyes like gravity. In private, she tried to parse her own heart. The truth, which she did not say aloud, was messier than a headline. Vince made space for her in a way that felt like sunlight. Their chemistry was immediate and comforting, and in a house designed to test the limits of loneliness, comfort had its own seduction. Vince, for his part, was a man split by his own contradictions. He loved the warmth of a shared blanket and the honest ease of Morgan's laugh. He loved the way she listened, truly listened, when he talked about fears he had never voiced in soccer leagues or family group chats. He also loved the steady, quieter life he'd left behind, the one with Kelsey. It was a life of familiarity and rituals, of inside jokes and mapped-out future plans. The show presented him as a simple rom-com lead, but his private weather systems were complicated, and the cameras only recorded the precipitation. When the video message from Kelsey didn't come, the one that usually appears like a love letter from the outside, a tether to the world beyond the walls, it was less a plot device and more a biological jolt. Vince noticed the space in the living room when the house sat down for the message reveal night and the screen stayed dark for him. He felt it in the quiet between conversations, in the way his phone buzzed but with messages that were logistical, not intimate. Kelsey's silence echoed across the feeds. Fans took it as a sign, Kelsey took it as a final act before she made her stance public. Morgan watched it all with the kind of private horror that feels like being accused with your own conscience. She sat on the couch, a blanket over her knees, the kind of stillness that comes when the line between reality and perception disappears. She thought she'd been careful, she thought she'd been honest in the ways she needed to be. She'd thought best friends could hold the complexity. But friends don't say "I love you" in the middle of a blackout and kiss with a kind of ease that promises tomorrow. Friends don't get video messages withheld. Friends don't come with the weight of a 7-year relationship dangling like an unlit fuse. Ashley's confrontation became the fulcrum of the house's moral economy. People took sides in hushed whispers that grew into loud arguments. Some said Morgan was a victim of the situation, someone who'd found solace in someone else's arms when loneliness was a currency in the house. Others called it betrayal, an ethical lapse Morgan had masked with charm. The house's voting patterns shifted, not because of strategy alone, but because human relationships bend votes in unexpected directions. Morgan, in the days that followed, navigated the house like someone in a maze she could not quite see. She started making small gestures that felt too performative to be genuine, cooking for other housemates, knitting compliments into her side conversations, aligning herself politically to those who'd been vocal in her defense. But intimacy cannot be washed away with surface-level gratitude. The cameras kept their patient watch, and the public kept its eager, unforgiving commentary. One night, she and Vince sat on the back steps, where the wind carried a false privacy and the stars were studio lights pretending to be far-off suns. He reached for her hand, their fingers finding the familiar pattern of their closeness. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," he said, voice rough with the grief of someone who could feel both desire and remorse at the same time. He named the contradiction. "I care about you. I care about her. I didn't sign up for hurting people." Morgan let the words sink. "I know," she said. Her own voice was smaller than she expected. "I don't want to hurt anyone." The confession was true. It was also part of the problem. In a house of mirrors, truth becomes reflection after reflection, distorted by angles and lighting. Yet human creatures are stubbornly fond of simple lists when complexity bears down. People in the house started to catalog moments: the cheek kiss by the fridge, the way Morgan's head rested on Vince's chest during late-night confessionals, the time she pressed his hand when a competition went poorly. Each item added to the ledger of culpability. The fans added their own entries in the comments sections, their voices amplified by the algorithm, the kind of public jury that loves to craft narratives and find guilty parties. There were also quieter moves, a late-night conversation where Morgan admitted, with a kind of brutal honesty she had kept inside, that sometimes a human wants what is comforting, even if it is wrong. "You meet someone and it's easy and you convince yourself that best friends is enough," she told the diary room, eyes rimmed with the rawness of someone who knows the world is watching and cannot take the step back out of the stream. But deep down, I know some things need to be decided outside these walls. Some viewers saw her confession as redeeming, a woman owning her messy mistakes, showing growth on a very public stage. Others saw it as a performance of remorse, designed to salvage a public image and keep a fanbase from burning too bright. The division itself became fodder for commentary, panels dissecting the arc, podcasts replaying key moments, TikTok snipping 8-second reactions into viral verdicts. Vince handled the shift with a softer, more fragmented approach. He tried to speak to Kelsey through the static of studio relationships and public messages. He tried to explain the in-house reality that had blurred their relationship lines. Kelsey's response, the public unfollow, the absence of a video message, was, in that social ecosystem, a decisive action. It forced a conversation about accountability. Did being cast in a reality show excuse emotional carelessness? Did the designed intimacy of the house absolve players of moral responsibility? Fans argued like jurors that the camera did not entitle anyone to another's commitment. Ashley's role, meanwhile, became emblematic of something bigger than the particular drama. She was the conscience in chaotic skirts, the one who said what everyone else thought. Her call-out, blunt, incisive, inevitable, fed into a cultural craving for accountability. People admired her bravery. They admired her unwillingness to romanticize the ambiguity that had taken root. The house shifted after that. Some alliances rearranged. Some viewers expressed relief that someone had been willing to speak plainly. Others criticized the culture of call-outs, arguing that real relationships are messy and that public shaming serves only spectacle. The show, as it always does, reflected back the audience's appetite for drama and their own capacity for empathy. For Morgan, the rawest lesson was intimately personal. The cameras had captured a moment of human weakness and then amplified it into a career-defining storyline. She learned, or the audience learned with her, that intention and perception live in two different houses. She could intend gentleness, viewers could perceive complicity. She could mean to stay best friends, but someone else's heartbreak would stand in the middle like an accusation. As the weeks marched toward eviction night and the usual whirlwind of competitions and last-minute alliances, Morgan found herself in the peculiar position of wanting to be understood and wanting forgiveness, not from the audience, though that she craved in a way that felt both needy and performative, but from the person she had hurt by association. Whether that would ever materialize outside the show was a question beyond the camera's purview, but it was the kind of human resolution reality TV seldom offers, meaningful reconciliation, slow and private, away from the glow of studio lights and the hungry voice of public debate. In the end, she walked a tightrope between personal honesty and public narrative. She continued to be a friend to those in the house who needed one, a competitor to those who strategized, and a focal point for an argument that extended far beyond her own heart. The cameras kept rolling, the fans kept commenting, and the producers kept editing the story into moments that confirmed what everyone already suspected. In the pressure cooker of Big Brother, lines blur, hearts falter, and truth becomes complicated. The final scene of that chapter, at least for now, was not a grand confrontation or a dramatic eviction. It was a quiet moment, the kind of scene that reality TV often neglects. Morgan, alone in the garden at dawn, tea cooling in her hands, watching a sky that had been lit by studio lights the night before turn honest and gray.